Wow, that is perfect. They just flick a couple lights and everybody just calms down. That's because you have sensors and you have if-then logic, right? If the lights start flicking, then get quiet. And you have appropriate responses. Perfect, perfect. Well, I told you needed to work on your flirting skills on that. It doesn't mean trip the speaker. Trip the speaker. This gal who is with the misnomer of grace on that, I was walking by and it's like out of the blue, she just kicks me on that, almost knocked me over. And she said, that's how I flirt. Anyway, well, it gets your attention. Good job on all that. Second talk. We can go through this one a bit quicker. I'm going to give you an acronym at the beginning, FLUFF, and it's going to say what it means, but it's going to be repeated over and over through the talk. So if you don't catch it right off the bat with your notes, it's coming back. It's coming back, all right? So don't panic. This is called 5 Minutes with a Darwinist. You have friends who are going to believe in evolution. They're going to be your friends. They're not your enemies. They're your friends. Any one of you could be just like them, and I was just like them. For a long period of my life, believed in evolution, would have argued with any one of you over it, because I believed what my teachers said in high school. So, that's what we're going to talk about. Or maybe you're going to go off to college and you're going to find a friend who thinks they're related to a chimp. Now what do you say to them on that? You trip them. That's what you do on there. Sorry, just got to pick on you a little bit. That isn't what it means to have 5 minutes with a Darwinist. You don't beat them up in 5 minutes and all that. Effective method to talk with your friends who are skeptical about what you believe. In fact, you're going to go off to college and they're going to be professors who are going to be skeptical. They're going to say they're skeptics. They're going to call themselves skeptics. They're going to be members of the Skeptics Club. So you're going to have people, those two girls look a little skeptical about the things you believe. So you want to have something that you can organize your thoughts. That's all this is. This is just a tool to help you organize your thoughts. So if I'm going to do a radio interview, I bring fluff to mind, which means I want to focus the discussion. Focus the discussion. I want to work into my vocabulary a phrase, less than persuaded. Focus the discussion, less than persuaded. I want to talk about 2 unobserved important events. Unobserved important events. 2 unobserved important events. I want to talk about a failed mechanism for design. And then finally, some freedom found in creation science on that. So I see everybody is scrambling away to write all of this down. This is such a relief. I go to some churches and I have to say, this is a place where you would like to take some notes. This is where you'd like to take some notes and get all this down. And one thing that happens when I go to churches that really bugs me is right before I get up to speak, the pastor will stand up and say, okay, all the young people are dismissed. And they go off and they leave, and I'm left stuck talking to a bunch of old fuddy-duddies. Like, who wants to talk with them? You guys are the ones who are going to be facing the challenges. You're going off to college in the next few years. You've got more militant atheists than I ever had when I was your age. You've got a big challenge facing you. You shouldn't get dismissed. I want to say, dismiss the old people. Leave me the young. So it's a pleasure to talk with you, and it's a joy to see you all taking notes. Okay, F, focus the discussion. Now all you have to do is just augment. So you can sit back, watch the slides, just augment as you see fit. Focus the discussion. Why? These are all going to be really obvious. Time is limited. So you need to define some terms, and you need to use some reputable sources. The good news is you only need to define 2 terms. And they're simple. 1, evolution. Some evolution is going to come up to you and you're going to say, well, evolution just means change. Just means change, or just means change over time. That's not true. Nobody debates that. Nobody argues that. You wouldn't argue that. Even the older people in the back of the room wouldn't argue that. You know why? Because the older people in the back of the room, they pull out their high school picture and they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, good grief, have I changed over time on that? That's what they do. They don't debate that things change. They know they change. This is what we debate. The National Association of Biology Teachers said, the diversity of life on Earth is the outcome of evolution. That we would debate. We would not say that the diversity of life on Earth is the outcome of evolution. So, in a real quick conversation, I might say this. When I'm talking about evolution, I'm talking about something that explains the diversity of life on Earth. When I talk about evolution, I'm talking about something that explains the diversity of life on Earth. Okay? What? The diversity of life on Earth. And here's the source. The National Association of Biology Teachers is the world's largest biological association, over 12,000 members. So they should have pretty good authority. That's a pretty extraordinary claim, and we should expect to find a lot of evidence for it. And as we saw in the last talk, they don't have a lot of evidence, and all the things that they've held up as evidence have been proven wrong. Second, I hold that science, this is the second thing to define, is science. Science is based on observation and testing. That's what you all were taught. Your science teachers tell you that. Science is based on observations and tests. Observations and tests. The National Academy of Sciences published a book, Science and Creationism, where they said scientific investigators seek to understand natural phenomenon by observation and experimentation. I just took that long word and reduced it to testing. Observation and testing. So when I say to my friend or on a radio interview, now when I'm talking about science, I'm talking about something that's based on observation and testing. Okay, this is participation. We're going to have a quiz. And this room divides naturally. This side versus this side. This side versus this side. Okay? I'll label this side of the room just for today the smart side. The smart side. Okay? My wife left this side of the room, so I finally have the label. This isn't really nice. I'm going to label this side of the room just for today the dumb side. All right? Dumb side. Believe me, it's always better to be on the dumb side than it is the smart side. It gives you more chance to go up. If you're at the smart side, all you can do is what? Go down. Okay. All right, smart side. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Be true to your hormones. All right? Good. All right, smart side. I'm going to ask you a question. Evolution is supposed to explain the... All right, smart side. Smart side. Evolution is supposed to explain the... The what? The diversity of life on Earth. Okay, dumb side. All right. Okay. Science is based on observation and... Did you hear that? I mean, that was really unified. That wasn't silence. That was like one clear voice. Let's listen to this again. Science is based on observation and... Science is based on observation and... All right, guys. Let's go for it. Be ready for the next quiz. What do you think the question is going to be? Evolution explains the... Diversity of life on Earth. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, guys. On that. Show them the big T. That's testosterone. Okay. All right. Less than persuaded. Work into your vocabulary this phrase, less than persuaded. If you can't remember the phrase, remember the look on this woman's face. Does she look less than persuaded? She's less than persuaded. Men can't even make this look. Women are programmed to make this look on that. They do it all the time. Usually they make it when they're listening to something a man's telling them. They kind of like, as if we would lie to you on there. All right. Less than persuaded. Please be listening and don't begin your conversation. Here's a clue, guys. This will be the question. Don't begin the conversation by saying, well, I just don't believe in evolution. It's tempting. It's tempting to jump into the conversation and head it off, because then you're just going to get, well, I don't believe in creation, and you guys end up going nowhere. The conversation goes nowhere. We want to begin the phrase by saying we've been listening carefully to what you hear on Nova or National Geographic, and saying less than persuaded it's disarming. It means you've been listening and you're willing to be persuaded, and maybe the person you're talking to is willing to be persuaded too. So it's a disarming. It's less than persuaded, and you don't want to use the word believe, because believe kind of sounds like magic. People believe in Santa Claus. They believe in the tooth fairy. They believe in these kinds of things. So less than persuaded implies that. Less than persuaded, even this guy's less than persuaded that he's related to you. He doesn't want to be, because you're less than persuaded because what you hear on National Geographic and these other shows are a bunch of stories, speculation, and you're seeing tons of computer-generated graphics and special effects, and none of that is real science. It's magic. This is not real evidence, but it's what you're getting from every field. That's why you're less than persuaded. Less than persuaded and skeptical. Oh, now that baby is skeptical. Skeptical right from the womb on that. Skeptical while we listen. How would you like to raise that kid for the next 18 years? I mean, wow, what a skeptic. Because evolution doesn't meet your criteria of science, which is based on observation and what? Testing. Good. Okay, quiz time. Quiz time. I'm going to start with the smart side, okay? All right, smart side. We want to hear like responsive reading. I'll say it, you guys respond. Evolution is supposed to explain the
diversity of life on Earth.
All right. Good job. Good job. Bingo. All right. You start your conversation with your friends. You don't want to start the conversation off with this phrase, well, I just
Don't believe in evolution.
All right. Okay. They're getting their game together. Okay, smart side. Tripping side. All right, there you go. Okay, smart side. Science is based on It's testing and observation and testing. I'll go for either one. That's an A. Good job. All right. These guys don't want to start the phrase with, well, I just don't believe in evolution. You can say, I've been listening carefully to my teachers. I've been listening carefully to Nova National Geographic and what they've been saying about evolution, and I am what? That what they're telling me explains the diversity of life on Earth. There you go. Less than persuaded. Less than persuaded. That's a great phrase to go off. Okay, unobserved important events. 2. Just 2, which makes it easy to do a what? Quiz. If evolution is true, you have to be able to get life going. And nobody has come up with an unobserved natural origin of life. Nobody saw it happen, but this is the main thing. Nobody is close to duplicating it, and nobody can even explain it. And you can say to your friends with absolute truth, There is not a paper published anywhere on the planet, a scientific paper, that describes a natural origin of life. That is the truth. If there was one out there, do you think someone would have waved it in my face by now? They would have. But nobody's waved it in my face because it's not out there. And even though they're going to tell you, and they're going to speak kind of authoritatively, oh, we got this origin of life figured out, no way, not even close. This research, this is a reporter. He was reporting on the world's largest association of origin of life researchers, and he published in 2011, Scientific American, Psst, don't tell the creationists, but scientists don't have a clue of how life began. And that is the truth. Nobody knows how it began, and nobody's even close to explaining it. It's just way, way, way too complicated. Okay, smart side. This will be your question. You have to get life going, and you have to be able to change it. You have to be able to change it from one fundamental type to another. Not just change it a little bit, not just come up with a different species, but you need to change it. What do I need to change it? From one fundamental type to another. You got to come up with something other than a dog. Something other than a dog. You can't just show me varieties of dogs, like this egghead dog and this football player dog right there. That's not true of football players. They don't drool on that, do they? Most don't. Good. Great answer. And that, most don't. Good. I've never had that one before. That's a good one. I don't want to see that. Guys, I want to see a creature change from what? One type to a fundamentally different type. Okay, so those are the two unobserved important events. Just to be fair, I'm going to start with were you guys smart side or dumb side? If someone gives you the choice to pick it, don't pick dumb side. Just say, we're the smart side. We're the smart side. Okay, but you said dumb side. Dumb side. What phrase do you want to work into your vocabulary that you've been listening to your evolutionists? You are what? Less than? Persuaded. Good. You're less than persuaded because science is based on? Great. And you're less than persuaded because there are two unobserved important events. The first one is a natural. Okay, let's do this like responsive reading. A natural origin of life. You guys are less than persuaded because you want to see a creature go from one type to a. All right. That sounded pretty good, didn't it? That's an A for these guys. All right. Smart side, living up. Oh, some people are giving high fives in the back on that. And you didn't even answer the question, what are you doing high fives for? Man alive. All right. No high fives if you don't answer. Well, we haven't changed one creature to a fundamentally different type. This is a reporting on the world's longest experiment on evolution. They're growing the bacteria that normally lives in your gut called E. coli. On the 200th anniversary of Charles Darwin's birth, they said, a 50,000 generation salute to Charles Darwin. They had grown 50,000 generations. Now they're up to 70,000 generations of E. coli. I have no idea why it's a salute to Charles Darwin, because after 70,000 generations of E. coli, these bacteria are still what? E. coli. They haven't even changed to a different type of bacteria, much less something other than a bacteria. Okay, failed mechanism for design. This is maybe the hardest one. When people look at living creatures, everybody sees that they look really, really complicated and look really, really designed. Everybody sees it. We, as creationists, have the easy answer. We say creatures look designed because they are designed. That's the easy answer. Almost everybody on the planet gets it. You look at a car, it looks designed because it is designed. You look at an incredible cheetah running down the field, it looks designed because it is designed. Evolutionists have the harder sell. They have to come up and tell people, well, that cheetah really looks designed, but it really wasn't. Because there isn't a designer. It just has the illusion of being designed. You want to know what's something cool? If you go to any country on the planet, any country, and you were to take a cat, and you were to go up to kids between the ages of 6 and 10, and you ask the kids, South Africa, Russia, Argentina, wherever, you ask these kids, where did this cat come from? You know what the kids will most likely say to you? God made it. God made it. And it takes teachers many years to get that out of their brain so that they'll say it evolved. But the natural inclination of all people is to look at something like that and they say, God made this. So we have the easier sell, and they have to tell us that all that design came about by evolution, and they have to convince you that it happened through random, I mean unplanned, totally accidental, break stuff, mutations, coupled with a mystical force where nature supposedly can select for or against something. Well, why does this not make sense? Why does this not explain it? First, mutations. Nobody wants them. We do everything we can to prevent them because they cause diseases and cancers. Nobody wants them. Nobody wants to say, my child is a mutoid or something like that. And so we prevent them. We try to keep you from getting mutations. So it's really counterintuitive to say something which breaks things, causes diseases and cancers, is the way that life evolved. How many of you have had your teeth x-rayed at the dentist? Almost all of you. The dental technician came out. Usually it's a gal. What's she carrying in her hand? A lead apron. And what does she do with the lead apron? She throws it over your lap. She throws it over your lap. So when they run the x-rays, stray x-rays don't irradiate your gonads. Because nobody wants that to happen. Because it will break your DNA and cause mutations. Nobody wants that irradiated. So they protect it. So it's kind of hard to say that something we're trying to keep from happening is the means to evolution. And then for them to say that nature selects, that's just a mystical force that nobody's ever seen, natural selection. Nobody has ever seen it. It's a concept which Darwin invented, where he says nature can act like a human breeder and select for or select against things. It's just a concept. It's not real. Nobody's ever seen it. Nobody's ever documented. Nobody's ever measured a selection pressure. It's all up there. Darwin looked at what a real human breeder could do, and a breeder can select for or against traits because a breeder has a real brain. And then he said nature can act like this, and he projects onto nature the ability to select. But nature, though it's filled with living things, is not alive. Only in science fiction is nature alive. Therefore, nature cannot, please listen up, nature can never select, nature can never favor, nature can never act on, nature can never weed, nature can never call. You can never put a verb to nature as if it's active because it is not an agent. And Darwin invented this concept so he could project onto nature a type of agency so he could get God's agency out and get a substitute agent in so that God is no longer the creator, nature becomes the creator. Nature gives life, nature leads to the diversity of life, and he does it by inappropriately applying this word, selection, to nature. This is the most important word because only something with intelligence, only something with agency can make selections. Teachers, don't teach this. Nature cannot select. Darwin is projecting onto nature an agency which he doesn't have, and he turns nature into the substitute God, which is mentioned in Romans 1:25. It says, and as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, they exchanged the truth of God, or more literally, they exchanged the true God for the false and worshiped and served the creation more than the Creator. Natural selection is Darwin's way of projecting agency onto nature so that it becomes the substitute agent for God. It can never select, it can never do any verb. And the more we repeat that, the more we reinforce in these brains that nature acts like an agent. And it's Darwin's way of getting it out. So this is really important. And the next time someone says to you, well, nature can select, nature can act, you're here because nature favored you and didn't favor you. Nature can never do any of those things. Death is not selective. So when someone says nature select, you just say, well, show me the selector. And then they'll say, oh, well, it's just a figure of speech, it's just a metaphor, it's just something like that. And then you say, well, figures of speech and metaphors can't really design. This is all a big mental concept, and it's deluded lots of people. We offer a better explanation for design, much better explanation for design. We say that organisms look design because they conform to the patterns of design. If you look at a running engine, car engine, does it have multiple parts working together for a purpose? Yes. Does it have precise timing? Yes. Precise fit and finish? Yes. Those are human-made things of design, and when you look at creatures, you see precise fit and finish, precise timing. Does my hand have precise timing? Does it have multiple parts working together for a purpose? Yes. You're seeing the patterns of design. Second, you see so many parts, just looking at my hand. What you don't see is you don't see the nerves. You don't see the muscles. You don't see the tendons. But they're there, and they're going to each one of my joints. Plus, there's 20-some muscles in the palm of my hand, giving it the ability to do this and this and this. 7 muscles just to move my index finger. 5 just to move my thumb. This little pinky, 3 muscles dedicated just to that. You see multiple parts working together for purpose, and the probability of getting these parts to work together goes down and down and down the more parts you have to get to work together. And you know what else? The more parts you have to working together, the more probability is that they're going to break. So we can mathematically quantify the probability of building something like this, and it is extremely low. Some people can even take their fingers. I can't do it. They can hold their fingers straight and just bend the very tips of their fingers. They have such good control over that right there. And then finally, we see lots of systems with all or nothing unity, which means unless all of the parts are there at the right place and right time, nothing's going to work. And if someone says to you, well, like what? Just say reproduction. Everybody understands reproduction. You have to have all of dad's parts, mom's parts, and baby's parts. Unless all of those are at the right time, nothing is going to work. And if reproduction doesn't work, evolution comes to a halt. So they offer you mutations and some magical selection event, and you can offer them all of these evidence that indicate design. So I might say to my friend, when the 2 mechanisms are put head to head, this one makes far more sense and explains far more evidence. And this is just a shameless way to put a picture of my son right here, number 30, in the slide. This is the goal line right there. And that guy is trying to get in, and my son, playing outside linebacker, came in and just put this monster hit. You could hear it for a mile on that. And this guy from the other team, he just dropped to the ground and just kind of quivered there. It was just the best hit you've ever heard. This picture made the front page of the newspaper on that. I'm not saying my son suffered any brain damage because of that, but he did go into the Navy. Anyway, so it was just a wonderful, wonderful hit. Unfortunately, they still lost the game on there. Okay, finally, freedom found in creation science. Freedom found in creation science. I want to end on some positive aspects of that. First, freedom to follow the evidence wherever it leads. I'm not worried that anything's going to come up that's going to show one creature changing to a fundamentally different kind. But my evolutionary friends don't follow that. Before you guys were born, there was a big debate in Kansas about how to teach creation and evolution. And this was published in the world's leading scientific journal, Nature, by Scott Todd. He said, even if all the data point to an intelligent designer, such a hypothesis is excluded from science because it is not naturalistic. Nobody functions in science like that. If data point to something, that's what you look for and that's what you believe. I'm an engineer. I rely on data. And then as a medical doctor, I relied on data. I never said, oh, all your tests, your x-rays, your labs, your exam indicates that you have this disease, but I don't believe it. Nobody does that except in evolution. Just over the border in Iowa, there was an astronomer named Guillermo Gonzalez who, when he was looking at the universe, he saw precise timing and fit, and he said, this looks like it's designed. And the college denied him tenure. And this is what one person said about that. Saying in 4004 BC, that's pretty much my position, or 13 billion years ago that God made it, is not falsifiable and therefore not science. I know that were I in a position to offer Guillermo Gonzalez tenure, I would deny it for the precise reason that his, yes, religious views about purpose in the universe explicitly mean that he is a doo-doo scientist, regardless of his ability to generate valid data. I don't want that kind of bondage, and neither should you. We want to be able to follow the evidence wherever it leads. I want the freedom from these kind of magical words so that when you start reading your textbook, be attuned to these. Words like, these creatures arose, these creatures emerged, these creatures appeared, nature gave rise to, this thing burst onto the scene. Real scientists don't use these words. These are magical words because they're skipping over a lot of missing data. Don't just tell me it arose. You tell me how it arose. You tell me how it appeared. If you can't tell me how, then don't say it appeared. Don't say it arose. You know what I wish? I wish you guys could stamp. I wish I could give you a rubber stamp that said magic words. You could memorize these words. And without getting into trouble, you could read your biology textbook and you could stamp magic word every time these words appeared in your text. And then you could turn the text in at the end of the year and not get in any trouble. This would clue you into looking for this stuff, boom, 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 boom. And you'd be watching for these things. And then if you go off and you have a scientific career someday, you could stamp your scientific papers because scientists use this magical stuff in the most sophisticated scientific papers over and over. Here's one. Can anybody see any magic in this headline from Phys.org? Study of salamanders in ponds demonstrates invisible finger of evolution. The invisible finger of evolution? I mean, if I said the invisible finger of God, they'd say, oh, this is religious. This is religious. And then finally, freedom from religious conclusions masquerading as science. These are religious statements that scientists use, but they kind of cover them up with scientific language. Here's one by Carl Sagan. The cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. Kind of sounds a little scientific-y there. The cosmos is all there is. And it would be easy to try to argue with him. He's passed away now. But don't argue with him. If Dr. Sagan were still alive, I would just say to him, and you could say to this really politely, you don't look like Dr. Sagan. Dr. Sagan, what experiment did you do? And what paper did you publish it in to demonstrate that the cosmos is all it is, or ever was, or ever will be? Could you ever do an experiment like that? The answer is no. How long would the experiment have to go? Forever. You would have had to start it back then. He can't prove this. This is how Carl Sagan thinks the world is, but not how he can show how the world is. This is just nothing but religion dressed up to look like science. Here's the last one. Last one. You recognize that guy, Stephen Hawking? How many of you heard of Stephen Hawking? How many think he was a pretty powerful guy and people listened to him? When he spoke, did people listen? Yeah, they listened. He was believed to be one of the smartest men on the planet. And look what it says. Stephen Hawking says, there is no God. There is no heaven, excuse me. Stephen Hawking says, there is no heaven. And it goes on to say this. Stephen Hawking, the world-renowned theoretical physicist, finds no room for heaven in his vision of the cosmos. The 69-year-old says, there is no heaven or afterlife for broken down computers. He's saying your brain, it's just a computer. And when you die, it's just a broken down computer. That's all you are. You're just a broken down computer. So there is no heaven or afterlife for that. And he goes on to say, that is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark. Now wait a second. Stephen Hawking, he's a man of science. He knows that science is based on observation and testing. And yet he's saying there's no heaven or afterlife. You know, you would want to argue with him. Don't argue with him. If he were still alive, you could just go up to him. You look more like Stephen Hawking. In fact, you're wearing glasses, so you get to be Stephen Hawking. Dr. Hawking, man, you've written some really good stuff. And I respect what you're doing, but you said there was no heaven or afterlife. Dr. Hawking, what experiment did you do to demonstrate that? You're a man of science, aren't you? What experiment did you do? Stop. How would he do an experiment to say there's no heaven? First, you got to be what? Alive. And then you got to what? Die. You got to be alive. You got to die. You got to go look and say, what? No heaven. There's no heaven over here. And then you got to do what? Come back to life and you got to tell your friends, I was there. No heaven. You can never do an experiment like that, can you, Dr. Hawking? Aren't you really just expressing your opinion of how this is? I mean, you can't really demonstrate that scientifically, can you? And you said that this is a fairy tale for people afraid of the dark. Maybe you're referring to me as a Christian, that I'm just afraid to die and I want to believe that there's a heaven there. But Dr. Hawking, couldn't it be that you believe this because you're afraid to meet God? Isn't that possible? That he wants to believe that? So we have an opportunity to talk to our friends about this. I wish, Stephen Hawking is dead, you know. I wish I had an opportunity to talk with him. I wish I had an opportunity to talk with him and share these things that we just covered. One, focus the discussion. Define two terms, evolution and science. Two, work into your vocabulary. Don't argue. Just say, we're less than persuaded. Less than persuaded because of two unobserved events. Natural origin of life, ability to change one creature to a fundamentally different kind. Less than persuaded because they have a really weak explanation for the design that we see in living things. They appeal to mutations and that magical selector. And we have a lot more freedom than they have. So if you have a few minutes to talk to your friends, please keep that in mind. It'll guide your thoughts. The hardest thing about getting a conversation going is to know where to begin. And this will give you a place to begin. All right, we have 5 men. 5 men. There's no longer any smart side and dumb side. We're all just sides. Does anybody have any question on anything related to creation evolution? We'll try to knock them out here. I don't want to walk off and just say, take your notes, but open it up for any question, for anything, something that you might have on creation evolution. Anybody have one? Trippy? No questions? All right. All right, there's a new call sign for you on that. Who else? Are you raising your hand back here? This guy? Nope, nope. You weren't raising your hand, were you? Nope. Okay. Anyone have any question? Last chance. Last chance at a real good deal. All right, then. Well, thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Thanks for playing along with my game today. It was a lot of fun. And I'll turn it back over to them. One final thing before I walk off the stage. We have a free, absolutely free magazine. It's been out free for 49 years. It has scientific articles on covering a whole bunch of topics. You can sign up for this. We'll mail it to you. We mail it to thousands of people. It's not going to cost you a dime, but it will keep you up to speed.